Hello, this is Peter Morris here. Today we're going to talk about a product that's part of the Riftsoft suite called Rift Create is a document authoring tool that is used by technical writers to produce documents. In the setup of Rift Create, we go into the Manage Systems Settings area, and you'll see that we've set up this initial company called Ute Mining, and within that we've set up a site called the Uinter site. And we have also added users, only one user at this point, who is an administrator. As you can see, they have an email address, a name, language, what security permissions they have, in this case as administrator, designer, template editing, authoring, and upload of documents to document management systems. The sites that this person is available is the only site in here, the Uinter site. If there's multiple sites, you can give permission to those sites as well. The initial task required in setting up a new work procedure is to first look at an example that the customer might have. Here is one here. This is a Word document where a work procedure has been set up, and this is for a particular job to do a PM on this grader. And as you can see, it has information at the header, like what PPE is required to do the job. It has a picture of the vehicle, has some precautions and hazards, permits, isolations and JSAs required, and then the actual steps to do the job. You'll see that there's a couple of different line types here. They have, I guess, header type procedures, steps, and then sub-steps, but then notes. What else have they got here? More header steps and procedure steps, and then caution step. So we have to be able to make the document do exactly the same as what's been done here. At the footer of each page you'll see there's a page number and a date. That would be probably the date that it's printed. We can also make that a date perhaps the procedure was written, and then at the bottom there's some feedback information on how the job has been performed, what corrective actions were taken, work identified, updates to the procedure, or any bill of materials that need to be changed, and then a sign-off section at the bottom. This is very typical of maintenance work procedures, and we can emulate all of this in the Rift Create product. So initially we're going to start by setting up a document type. Very first thing we do is we go in and we add a document type. In this case we're going to call the document type maintenance procedure. And save that. As you'll see, the document type is now active. You'll notice that there's no template yet because we haven't created a template, and we'll show how to do that in following lessons. Initially we're going to start off by setting up some data that needs to be put into the document type so that they can then be created on the template. There are two types of data. There are fields and there are tables. Now the way it works is fields are typically areas where you put information in one time only. Tables are where information is repeated, so you have multiple lines of the same sort of information. If we go back to the example work procedure again, let's have a look at what sort of fields we're going to need. We're going to want a description of the job. Now this could be broken into two fields. It could be the actual vehicle type and then the job. So a Cat 14M motor grader, 250 hour pre-PM. I would actually make that two separate fields. Then we have task list, operation, SAP document number, then some mandatory PPE required, a picture of the vehicle, precautions and hazards, permits, isolations and JSAs. This is all information that will be set up in fields and tables within the document. We had the option to do things like lookup tables. So instead of typing hot work permit and isolate vehicle and tag, we could set that up in a lookup table, so you just select that. these precautions and hazards, we might actually have them just right in each time. So I'll show examples of that. Also, the icons required to fill in here can be set up in a table as well, so that you can just select them and not have to actually put the image in. The image will come from a table, and I'll show how that works as well. So let's start off by going back into Rift Create, and so we'll start off by adding some fields. The first field we're going to add is the vehicle type. So we're going to say equipment type, and we're going to make that a simple multi-line text field. We're going to call that active. Then we'll also add another one called task description. We'll make that multi-line field, and we'll make it active. As you can see, you can also set the length of each field so that people don't exceed lengths when it comes to how they'll be laid out in templates. We'll save that. Let's have a look at what else we need. We need a task list number, an operation, and an SAP document number. We'll add those fields as well. Task list. This will make this a single line because it's very short. Operation, also single line, and SAP document number. Single line, active. So we've now created all of those fields. We'll save that, and let's take a look at what the template requires now. PPE. So this is an example where we would create a lookup table, and I'm going to show how that's done right now. So we go into the lookup area and we create a lookup table, and that lookup table is going to be called PPE, or personal protective equipment, and we're going to add two fields. First field we're going to add is a description, and the second field we're going to add is a picture or an image. Field type is single line of text, make that active, and this is going to be the display field that when we look at a list, this is what we're going to see. Then we're going to have an image, so the type of field it is an image, and that's going to be active as well. And we're going to save that. Now what we're going to do is populate values in here for each of the PPE items that we have. So this is what we do is we go out and find the pictures, and add them in. And etc. I'll add all the rest in here and then come back to you. You'll now see I've added all of the PPE as images with a description. We now go into the document type and we create a new field that is PPE, and that field type will be a multi-select, and the lookup will be PPE, and we make that active. Now let me show you now what happens when you actually go in as an author and see how this has affected the system. Go Going into Rift Create, you'll now see that if we can add documents. So I'll add a document, and you'll see that you can put in the equipment type, the task description, task list operation SAP document number, and select the PPE that is required, and save that. Let's continue on with the setup. Looking back at our document again, we need a couple of tables: precautions and hazards, permits, isolations, and JSAs. Now if you have a look here, the precautions and hazards is a single field of a description you type in. Permits, isolations, and JSAs has a permit and a document reference number potentially. Same thing with isolations and anything else that you might have. So let's set those tables up now. So setting up the tables, we add a table for precautions and hazards. Put it in order, the first one, and we add a column which will be a simple description. Field type will be a multi-line text. Make that active. Save that. Add an additional table. Permits. Permits, isolation, JSAs. Second one, columns, description, multi-line text, active, document reference. Make that single line text, make it active. Now if we go back in now, refresh the site, adding a new document, you'll now see that those tables are available to fill in. So again, you can put in precautions and hazards, description, permits, isolations, and JSA. Again, you can just put a description in, but what if we wanted it to be a table that you would look up, so the permits perhaps are always set up so that you just select them off a list? Let me demonstrate how you do that. Going back into settings again, we would add a new lookup table, and we're going to call it permits JSA lookup. I like to use the word lookup when I'm creating a lookup table because it just makes it easy to understand where the data is coming from when you see the word lookup. So I'm actually going to do the same thing with the PPE. Call that PPE lookup too. As you can see, we can change the name of this and it doesn't affect where we've used it before. So we're going to create fields here. We're going to have the permits, isolations, and JSA lookup. We'll have a description. Type field will be multi-line text. Make it active. And this will be the display field. Now again, the display field is what you see when you see a list. Save that. And then we'll create some values. One of the things you'll see, we have the ability to export data out of table and import it back in between Microsoft Excel and Riftsoft. The reason we have this is if you have large tables, you can import it rather than hand typing each entry in. This is a time-saving feature of Rift Create. But today we're just going to add the few items that we have. Let's look back at the template again and see what we have. we have hot work permit, isolate vehicle and tag. We might add a few others while we're at it. And save that. So now we go into the table within the document type for permits, isolations and JSAs, and we change the description type to a drop down, and we look up permits, isolations and JSAs and save that. Now when we go into Rift Create and refresh it, and we add a new permits, isolations and JSAs, you can see that we can now select the permit, put a document reference in, and being a table we can add multiple entries, like so. I've now shown you how to set up fields, tables, and also lookup tables so that you can have multi-select, as in here, or drop down where required. This concludes the first lesson in how to start setting up the database ready to build templates.